Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online Alicization episode review. This one's going to be for episode 7, which is called Swordcraft Academy. And, another enjoyable episode. The adaptation for Alicization, I think, continues to be pretty good. I think this is definitely the first time for me, the discussion of the decisions around how they chose to do this episode in terms of flashing back to sort of, I suppose, skip over stuff that happens in the light novel, choosing to bring in stuff that was revealed much earlier in the light novel in a bit later, because what happened in this one is that we just immediately cut to Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh have been in the academy for 2 years basically, and they're about to sort of become the I suppose older kind of students in the academy. Their mentors are just about to graduate, and that's the situation we find ourselves in. When the last time we saw Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh's journey, they had literally just left the village. We didn't see anything about where they went. Now, this is where, of course, they do the flashback and show them going to this kind of more local tournament, winning, and obviously that's what earned them their spots in this academy, to train to become an Integrity Knight at some point. That's going to be their way to get to the capital, to get to Alice. It fits the plot, but definitely they're very heavily skipping over, I suppose, the journey aspect of this. Now, what I will say is that I do feel that even the light novel very much accelerates and does it very fast-paced, the journey of Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh! It is not this really long-form thing where we stay with them every night, camping out, making slow progress. It is still a light novel, it's still somewhat fast-paced, and they're basically hitting on the key moments. Even in the light novel, there's not that much stuff that they kind of show. There is still a lot of time skips, so the whole kind of 2-year time skip here isn't too far off what the light novel does. It focused more on that local tournament. It set up a few other little things in there. They chose that as the opportunity in the light novels to kind of reveal the way the inhabitants of the underworld view sword skills and sword techniques, which they haven't gone into yet. I assume they probably will do in the next couple of episodes. They'll start to bring in some of the terms of what they call sword styles in this world, because obviously all we know right now is that Kirito is kind of confusing people in a way, impressing people by calling his own unique sword style Aincrad style. He does also reveal in this episode that the way a new mechanic he sort of learned about is that if you have the confidence in yourself, the willpower to win, you can enhance your power by visualizing yourself as being victorious, as being confident. That is something else that is present in this game, and that's obviously linked into the whole idea of it's fundamentally is people's fluctlight. So their soul is basically what's kind of powering each person in the game. So it's amplifying, I suppose, the power of your soul with confidence to boost your power in game. That's what he's trying to get at there, and that kind of maybe explains some of the more heated moments, how Kirito's able to get a big kind of one-hit KO or something like that. But other than that, it's still the sword skills. He goes over the whole sacred art skill level, the object skill level, and kind of durability. So they definitely don't cover every single bit of it right now. And I suppose if there's any criticism of this episode, it probably is that they just, as an introduction to the Sword Academy, it wasn't amazingly well done, but for what it was, the beginning of this, I think they did an okay job of here is Liana, here is the character who Kirito is the page to, and she is the number 2 ranked swordswoman in her kind of her year, and we get to meet the number 1 ranked guy, Volo, towards the end of the episode, and that's the big cliffhanger, that he wants to test his skills against Kirito after seeing him use some unique skills with his new sword. He kind of wants to use a very minor kind of bit of disrespect to, take advantage of it to get this sparring session, which usually wouldn't happen. So really cool chance for Kirito to prove himself here, and just with the relationship that Kirito and Liana have, they've obviously known each other for a while, but this is our first time actually getting to see them kind of interact. I like that there definitely is that sense of Kirito respects her. I think you can really sense that he has learned a lot from her in terms of swordplay. Not so much in terms of, like, we know Kirito knows all the special skills and stuff like that. When it comes into a proper battle, like, he is probably closer to Liana than you would maybe think. I think what he's really learning from her is how sword styles work in this world, plus just more training in just, like, basic kind of combat. Almost like improving his real life sword skills rather than just relying on the direct skills assisted by the system type stuff that he usually does. So that's what a lot of this training is doing, is it's these 2 years are sort of forging Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh into, top level swordsmen because they've been training for like 2 years. And I like that you see the training session that he does with Liana, and it's a pretty even enough fight. It's just a sparring match, of course, but her unique style with the sort of sword whip kind of has Kirito on the defensive, and he kind of gets disarmed in the fight, but obviously it's not Kirito fighting at his best. He didn't really go in the offensive himself. He didn't go into tons of different sword skills or anything like that. So there's still that up in the air, and I think that's what's going to happen in the upcoming fight, in that he already promised Liana that, okay, I have been keeping some skills a secret from you. I will do it as like your graduation gift. I will show you some of the high-end skills I've sort of been hiding from you. And I think with Liana towards kind of Kirito, you definitely get a sense of, like, she saw something unique in Kirito, and that's why she chose him to be her page and him to train. She mentions their sword styles are fairly similar, but it's also that she can sense that there is this sort of, like, she can learn from him just as much as, like, she can teach him. And that's, I suppose, maybe some of the confidence that he is going to give her, because they present this situation where she is almost undefeatable by anyone except when she fights the number 1 ranked guy, and she loses that confidence, and suddenly the whole, envisioning yourself as being confident so you're more powerful falls away with her, and that's why she's always kind of stuck at the number 2 rank. Maybe Kirito demonstrating some unique skills in this fight with Volo here at the end is going to push Liana over the edge to maybe gain that number 1 rank before the end of the year, before they graduate. But I liked what they did with her in just an episode in terms of getting a solid amount of character across, and especially with I think just the way Kirito interacted with her compared to Yu-Gi-Oh, how nervous he was, mainly because, as they kind of talk about later, because of how, like, beautiful she is, but even so, extremely formal from Yu-Gi-Oh. He is still kind of very awkward, whereas Kirito is more, like, chill and relaxed. So that was still fun, because you later on in the episode got the Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh talk of Yu-Gi-Oh talking about how he wouldn't have got here without Kirito, and then Kirito sort of reversing that and saying that I wouldn't have got here without you, that Kirito needs that, like, really dependable sort of going by the rules to keep Kirito out of trouble, and Yu-Gi-Oh needs someone who can kind of step outside the box a bit. So they both help each other to get to this level, and Yu-Gi-Oh is the page of another one of the higher ranked people in the year as well. So I assume they'll develop that stuff as we go on. Yu-Gi-Oh wasn't a huge focus in this episode all that much, but some nice little moments here, definitely, of just kind of teasing the idea of, like, a 5-part sword skill, and we see him use a 4 part one, but The other thing that they set up in the background as well was obviously Kirito is growing flowers as again part of his present for Liana, but also that there are two other guys in Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh's year who don't seem to like them all that much. They seem to be kind of higher ups in society, and they seem to kind of turn their noses up at Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh as being obviously more commoners, whereas like everyone else is being referred to as like lord. You can tell they come from rich families who've been they've been allowed to have like training their entire lives, and suddenly here's Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh out of nowhere being some of the higher ups. And they basically say as much that like Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh are two of the highest like ranked pages, but which kind of puts them above them, but they still look down on them. So they're sort of setting up something there. Yu-Gi-Oh wanting to stay under the radar, but Kirito almost being like forced to like, no, don't say anything, Kirito, don't say anything. So you know that was a interesting setup for going forward. But that's most of what I wanted to say about this episode. It probably ends up being slightly on the weaker side of I think the episodes we've got so far. In that this is just the setup for the Sword Academy for the most part. The other thing I want to talk about before we end would be Kirito's sword. This is another thing with regards to like when they're choosing to tell specific stories that's a little bit odd. Of like, if I remember correctly in the light novels, they just directly like in the aftermath of the Gigas Cedar being chopped down, had that scene of Kirito being allowed to take the tip of the Gigas Cedar, and that it basically is a material to make something out of, make a sword out of. That was set up earlier on than it's kind of being revealed here, in that they revealed that detail from a while ago as Kirito was going to basically accept the sword and take it for the first time. Again, like it's not a huge issue in that it's not like in the light novels, like Kirito checked in every single day on the sword as it was gradually being built and all this sort of stuff. But there was just a little bit more of a setup to it, and I like that it was this sort of mystery between novels of like, oh cool, he has the material for this sword, but it's wood, so how's that going to work? And they just kind of did it all at once here, which is fine. I obviously the significance is that Kirito now has a high level sword where he can practice, hone his skills, see how many of the high level like SAO skills he can actually use in the underworld. And it also serves the purpose of Yu-Gi-Oh has the Blue Rose sword. He can now, I suppose, keep that and not need to share it with Kirito, because Kirito has a item of equal level. Kirito hasn't named his sword yet, but that I suppose we'll get there. It takes a while to get its name. Other than that, I think that is more or less everything. Kirito doesn't have to pay for his sword, because you could sort of tell that the craftsman for the sword was sort of so happy with how it turned out that it was such a unique project for him that he was happy just to work on it, and just seeing that Kirito is able to wield it effectively is kind of payment enough for him. Almost that like he learned from making this sword. It's his most like precious kind of thing that he's ever made, and he's just happy that it's going to be put to good use. So it's always cool to see Kirito especially get a new sword and to have it be this really. It's a black sword. It fits it perfectly. I think there's something somewhat significant to the fact that like it is made out of the Gigas Cedar, and that it sort of represents their journey. Like both Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh swords both sort of represent their journey. Of Yu-Gi-Oh's sword represents, I suppose, in a way, the event that led to Alice being taken away, but it also represents like him and Kirito taking that sword and using it to cut down the Gigas Cedar, and then Kirito's sword being made from the Gigas Cedar is significant in that that's sort of where Kirito re-entered the story, which was meeting Yu-Gi-Oh next to that tree, basically. So the significance of that and where their swords come from is nice, and I think it works. But yeah, as I said, some minor problems with this episode, just with regards to some of the depth maybe not being delved into quite yet. But because they're doing it differently, I fully understand that the anime, it can reveal some of that detail as we go on, and that to a degree, like always, the light novels are going to have the opportunity to give more details on stuff, like mechanics, more so than the anime. They don't want to just have every anime episode just be explanation, especially after, like, the last episode was super explanation heavy, and we've had a lot in the first couple of episodes to explain stuff. I understand them wanting to have more of it, just here's what's happening now, this is the next stage of Kirito and Yu-Gi-Oh's journey, here's what's happening, we'll roughly fill you in on what's going on with the explanation. So they're my thoughts on the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode. But yeah, this has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.